It looks like Warren Buffett is officially stepping down as CEO for Berkshire Hathaway. What's going on, guys? It's Ricky with Tech Solutions here with a super quick update, and I thought I would share the news. Warren Buffett makes a surprise announcement today saying that he is stepping down as Berkshire Hathaway CEO. For those that do not know, it was expected that by the end of the year he was going to do so. Greg Abel, 62 years old, who is supposed to replace Warren Buffett as CEO. For those that also do not know, Berkshire Hathaway is a publicly traded company. It's under BRKA. And yes, the number that you are seeing on the screen is the actual value per share. $809,000 is what it costs per share. But recently, I don't want to say recently, but they did announce and have the option of this Berkshire B trading at $539. Still, to most people, an expensive stock when it comes down to price per share. But if you take into consideration where the current market is at and where Berkshire Hathaway is at all-time highs, while most of the market is still struggling, like Tesla, still down over 40% from the previous all-time highs. It's just to emphasize how well ran of a company and an investment firm Berkshire Hathaway actually is. Warren Buffett is viewed as one of the greatest investors of all time. I mean, in reality, there is no comparison. And I wanted to actually share this video that kind of highlights and gives Warren Buffett's perspective about tariffs and protectionism. So again, I just thought it was an interesting take when it came down to his perspective. Obviously, he's 94 years old. He has a very different view in the world. He's experienced a lot of different what would you say, recessions and or market retracement. So again, just wanted to share this with you guys. So you guys let me know in the comment section what you think.
From Bill Mitchell. I received more questions about this than any other question. He writes, Warren, in a 2003 Fortune article, you argued for import certificates to limit trade deficits and said these import certificates basically amounted to a tariff. But recently, you called tariffs an act of economic war. Has your view on trade barriers changed, or do you see import certificates as somehow distinct from tariffs?
Yeah, the import certificates were distinct, but their goal was to balance imports against exports, and so that the trade deficit would not grow in an enormous way. In fact, it would have, and it had various other provisions in it to help third world countries at that time, as they were called, to perhaps catch up a little bit. And they had a variety of aspects to them, but basically they were designed to balance trade. And I think you can make some very good arguments for the fact that balanced trade is good for the world, and the more balanced trade there is, the better. It will continue to be better for cocoa to be raised in Ghana, and coffee and Colombia, and a few things. And over time, the American industry has gone from being an agricultural country. This was nothing but an ag country. I mean, virtually, and that was only 250 years ago. And we have become a very industrial country, and we did not want to make that a situation, in my view, where we ran greater and greater deficits, building up greater and greater debts against the country. So I designed this import certificate thing, which Charlie thought was a little too much like Rube Goldberg. I don't know whether that name is, but it's gimmicky. But it's certainly a lot better than anything I think than we're talking about now. And there's no question that trade can be an act of war, and I think it's led to bad things. Just the attitudes it's brought out in the United States. I mean, we should be looking to trade with the rest of the world, and we should do what we do best, and they should do what they do best. And I don't think it that's what we did originally. I mean, we were good at producing tobacco and cotton 250 years ago, and we traded it. And we want a prosperous world with 8 countries with nuclear weapons, including a few that are what I would call quite unstable. I do not think it's a great idea to try and design a world where a few countries say, ha, 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 we've won, and other countries are envious. So my import certificate idea, which went no place.
So the thing that I want to highlight, if I can, is the whole point of this is that Warren Buffett is comparing his tariff certificate versus what is currently going on with Trump and this trade war. And he's saying that trade can be considered an act of war, especially with 8 countries that we're choosing to do it with that have nuclear weapons. So obviously it's a conversation and something to take into consideration. He viewed or labeled some of them as possibly unstable, and it's kind of more of like the tone and the character that is used when we do win these so-called trades of, aha, look at us, we're winning. And understanding that there is a form of lack of respect, especially if these countries are viewed as somewhat unstable and they do have access to nuclear weapons. Again, it leaves a sour taste in people's mouth, right? Especially possibly with these countries. Now, it's not to say that these countries have to retaliate in a form of war. I think that, again, just through everything that Warren Buffett has been through, I can totally see why he's taking kind of that perspective. I just found it to be interesting. It's a different tone. It's a different perspective that I haven't heard too many people talk about. And obviously, just the authority that Warren Buffett has, being viewed as one of the greatest investors of all time, to comment on that and how we not necessarily should tread lightly, because at the end of the day, he has no power nor influence on how Trump chooses to run the United States. But again, there is no question that it possibly does leave a sour taste in other countries' mouth, especially when not only are we initiating this trade war, but also raising the flag that we are winning this trade war against countries that are obviously incredibly powerful in their own way. So, and I also like the thing that he touched base on of this world should encourage trade and allow countries that produce the best to be able to trade with the best. And why would we want to take that away from them? So it's a different perspective, not something that I've taken into consideration before. But if you guys haven't heard his speech, I think it was a total of 2 hours. If you guys have time, feel free to check it out. With that being said, also one thing that I quickly want to highlight is what we have in store for next week. For those that do not know, the most important report that I think that everyone should be paying attention to is on Wednesday, May 7th. The Federal Reserve is going to be meeting for a possible rate, not for a possible rate decision, but for the next rate decision. This is where the Federal Reserve decides to raise, pause, or cut interest rates. According to the most recent Fed rate monitor tool, feel free to look it up yourself, there's like a 5% probability that the Federal Reserve is going to cut and a 95% probability that the Federal Reserve is going to pause once again. Remember, Trump and the United States is desperate to start cutting interest rates. That's all the market has been talking about. Rate cuts, rate cuts, rate cuts. Because again, the U.S. needs to refinance its debt, and it only wants to refinance at lower rates. Therefore, it's begging or trying to persuade the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates as soon as possible, especially because we haven't really seen the inflation reports reflect these tariffs, in my opinion, yet. Now, again, when it does begin to get tracked on our CPI data reports, it's going to be very interesting to see if the Federal Reserve by then begins to act, or if it's going to be too late, the inflation rate begins to rise, and then again, the clock will be ticking at that point where they will be more in need of a Fed rate cut. And again, it's the whole cycle of inflation rising all over again. But again, we'll talk about that later down the road. Just again, wanted to share that with you guys. You guys let me know down in the comment section what you think. Hope that you guys are having an amazing weekend. I'll see you on Monday for our live trading session. If you want to tune on in, second link in the description down below. Hope that it earns your thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.